Grab your drinks and have a seat. It's time for serial killers.
Hello.
Hello.
We are here.
Yes, we are.
Still with an echo.
I think I just need to get something on that wall. And
Y'all
I think
should see y'all should see the podcasting room. We have the coolest setup. We are in the Star Wars room. And we just put a bunch of pictures on the wall, and they did exactly what I thought, and that was that they did not block out the echo. So I still hear an echo. I do think that the wall behind me needs stuff, but I think we need filler stuff. I just don't think it's enough. But regardless, we're still working on it. So I will have to put like a video up on our social media post of what our current office looks like / podcast room.
She's getting there.
So for those of you who are new here and for those of you that are not, I'm T.
And I'm Jay.
And we are here to tell you about serial killers. And we're here to tell you what we are drinking today.
Pew, 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 pew.
Could be coffee, could be water, could be alcohol, could be soda. What is your guess, Jay? What is your drink of choice today?
For the long-time listeners, it is not Milo's.
Not Milo's, because we don't have any Milo's.
But I'm hitting it with the old ice water today because I just sat on the train and bus for a while and felt very parched. So I'm just sticking with water today. Pretty boring.
Yeah, and I'm actually sipping on water too. I did have coffee today. So what I did have earlier today is I did have my Nespresso pod, which was a Mexico blend with one stevia and some coconut creamer. However, your girl's been having had a migraine in the middle of the night, still has a headache. So I figured probably water's the best choice. Any of you out there who are listening, if you're migraine getters,
sufferers,
give me some tips because this shit just is not fun. Anyways, so we're not actually here to just talk about migraines and what we're drinking. We are actually here to talk about serial killers, if you are interested.
I am.
So we'll get right into it.
And who are we talking about today?
Well, you see, here's the thing. The person that we're talking about this week is not really going to take us very long to talk about, so you're welcome. And this person sounds very, very, very familiar, but it's not who you think it is. But the person we're talking about this week is John Adams. And not the John Adams. We're talking about John Bodkin Adams.
Thought you were going to hit me with the John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt Adams.
His nickname, so he is actually the original Dr. Death.
Ooh.
Does anybody remember who the other Dr. Death is? We have actually done an episode on him already.
Does it start with a K? Kevorkian.
No.
Wait, isn't that a...
What? Dr. Kevorkian? No.
Yeah, he did some killing.
No, Dr. Death. You really don't remember?
No, I don't remember the name. Because now all I've got is Dr. Kevorkian in my head.
Harold Shipman. We've done a whole episode on Harold Shipman.
Look, Dr. Kevorkian, also known by the nickname Dr. Death.
Okay, but that's not so the Dr. Death that a lot of people know of is Harold Shipman, and he was from England. He was a doctor and he killed a lot of fucking people.
We should do Dr. Kevorkian.
Do you not remember?
No, I remember it now that you're talking about it. I do remember.
Well, John Adams was apparently a murderer before him. This is why he's like the original Dr. Death. He has about 136 or more victims.
Quite a lot still.
Now, I'm going to say This is going to be an interesting case, and I'm very curious to hear your reaction. I'm just going to leave it at that.
That's what I'm here for.
Just going to leave it at that.
Is my reaction.
And that's for all of you listening. I want you to very, very clearly hear what I'm saying and listening to me as I tell you this story about John Adams. His murder dates are 1935 to 1956. And again, his location is
England.
England. Why the fuck does England have all of the doctor deaths? I'd like to know.
Well, this Dr. Kevorkian was American, so
Okay, stop talking about Dr. Kevorkian. His method of murder, as per all the doctors who kill, would be poison. And a characteristic of his murders is he killed for greed. Just because he wanted things, money, items. So John was born January 21st, 1899 in Ulster, Ireland. So he's actually an Irish doctor, by the way, but he lived and worked in England. He was born into a very deeply religious household and one that he continued to practice his religion throughout his entire life. His father was a watchmaker and a preacher in the local congregation, and John also had a younger brother. Now, in 1914, John's father dies from a stroke. And then in 1918, so 4 years later, John's younger brother dies during the influenza pandemic. So John had a little bit of a rough start there. I mean, when you think about it, you figure he was 17 years old when his younger brother died. He was 13 when his dad died. Now, John attends Coleraine Academical Institution, and then he goes on to Queen's University in Belfast. Now, he was described as a lone wolf and a plotter. Do you know what a plotter is?
Somebody who plots.
Not plotter, plodder.
Oh, like with a D?
Mm-hmm.
No.
So a plotter is someone who works slower. That's what it said. So I'm going to tell you right now, if that is an offensive term, I had no idea even what it was until I looked it up and I had to use the dictionary. So anyways, it's somebody who works slower. So he was described as a lone wolf and someone who worked much slower than others by his teachers. That's how they described him. Now in 1921, so he is now 20 years old, he graduates and is offered a position as an assistant houseman at Bristol Royal Infirmary by a surgeon named Arthur Rendell Short. So this was basically, he was an assistant. That's what a houseman was. He was an assistant to the surgeon, and he would help with patients. Okay. Now, after about a year, this does not work out well for him. It's not his cup of tea, we'll say. And so he ends up applying for a job as a general practitioner at a Christian practice in Eastbourne, Sussex. Now, he was actually encouraged to apply for this job by the surgeon, Arthur Rendell Short, because he felt that he would do better under and being a general practitioner. So my assumption would be that Queen's University in Belfast had like a medical program and he graduated with a medical degree, because nowhere does it say that what he actually graduated with. But I mean, he does go on to be a doctor. So that I'm assuming he has a medical degree, and that's why he's able to do these things. 1922, he moves to Eastbourne and lives with his mother and his cousin, and he begins to work. Now, by the 1930s, there are rumors and suspicions around John and his practices, and his methods that he used to help patients were perceived by most as unconventional. Most people who saw him or had family members see him were like, what he does is not really what I would expect a doctor to do. By 1935, he had a patient named Matilda Witten, and she dies. Now, when she dies under his care, not necessarily like in his office, but like he's the one who's giving her medical advice and whatever. Well, when she dies, she actually leaves John 7,385 pounds in her will, which is the equivalent to 681,000 pounds today.
Wow.
And that is actually 910,000 US dollars. So
that's a lot of money.
His patient in her will gives her doctor all this money. Her family was very upset by this, and they contested the will. They felt something was very wrong because I think and I believe her family was left out of the will and everything went to the doctor. And they were like, hold on. Like, we're her family, you're her doctor. I don't know why you're even in her will. And so this is strange. However, This was upheld in court, and John got to keep all the money. Now, John does end up getting a degree in anesthetics as well in 1941, and he actually begins working 1 day a week at a local hospital. Now, at this hospital, he was known as a bungler. Do you know what?
Somebody who works even slower than a plotter?
No, he would literally eat the food at the hospital, count the money that he was making at the hospital, and fall asleep during operations.
Interesting.
So he was not a good anesthesiologist at all.
Yeah.
He was a bungler. Okay. Now, there were even times that he mixed up the tubes of medication for the anesthetic gas and gave the wrong shit to the wrong people.
So he really wasn't good.
It got to a point where the patients, like some of the patients would turn blue because he literally would like not give them oxygen. Or sometimes they would wake up while they were in the middle of surgery. And so he fucked that up. He was not good, clearly, at anesthetics. So even with all of this stuff happening, the suspicions around his methods, the fact that he was a shitty anesthesiologist, he actually has a rather successful career. And he becomes very, very wealthy through his life. In 1956, suspicions really start to arise about his behaviors. And it's because Leslie Henson reported some weird behaviors to the police. What he had told the police was that his friend Gertrude Hollett had died unexpectedly and she was under John's care. Now, by this time, John had been made a beneficiary on 132 wills of his patients. So by 1956, 132 of the people that had died had in their will that he was a beneficiary, if not the only beneficiary.
Seems a little fishy to me.
Which that, of course, sets off a lot of rumors because people are like, no, most of the time you're not giving your doctor all of your belongings when you die. But then Gertrude also had done this, and Gertrude's friend Leslie was like, she would not have done that. But nothing had really come of it. And I don't know if it was just because they were like, what? I don't know. It's the 50s. Like, I don't know. I wasn't alive in the 50s, but I feel like in the 50s, you weren't, we're not talking 1800s here.
Yeah.
1950s, there's more modern medicine. And so to me, I'm sitting here going, yeah, I can see why willing your entire estate to your doctor is really strange. On August 17th, 1956, an investigation is started by the Metropolitan Police's murder squad. And this is because they are taking these suspicions and these behaviors and the reports, and they're starting to take them seriously. And there's two main detectives that actually decided to focus on the cases. And they took a look at his career, and they were like, okay, so John's career, throughout his career, we're going to focus on the years 1946 to 1956 to kind of get an idea of what this guy's been doing. They ended up finding 310 death certificates between that time. So in a 10-year period, 310 of his patients had died.
That's a lot.
I mean, to be fair, he was working with a lot of elderly people.
Yeah.
That is a lot. Okay. But what's even more strange is 163 of those 310 death investigation or death certificates, they considered worthy of investigating the deaths. So they took a look at each death certificate, read how they died, whatever it was that they needed to read. And 163 of them, they were like, we have questions. And this was because 42% of the patients that he had were diagnosed as having died of cerebral thrombosis or a cerebral hemorrhage, which at the time in the mid to late 50s, if you compared it to the average elderly person dying of a cerebral thrombosis or cerebral hemorrhage, it was only 15% of the elderly population would have died of those. And 42% of his patients had died of that. So they were like, that doesn't even make sense. The statistics are not there to, because the
stats aren't statin.
Correct. And I'm sure they're sitting there going, well, hello. And again, 50s, they probably had ways to help or stop these kinds of things. And they're like, well, why are so many people dying of that? So they decide, okay, we're looking into these deaths. They go and they talk to people who had worked with John. They also talked to the families of the patients. And it was said when they were talking to people he had worked with that John would administer what he called, quote, special injections to his patients. When he was asked by the nurses, what are you giving them? He was like, none of your business. None of your business. Don't ask. Don't ask. I'm not telling you shit. He would refuse to tell. Some of the nurses would be like, no, but seriously, like, we need to chart it. And he's like, none of your business. It is mine. It's my injection that I'm giving them. It's a special injection that I concocted for them that's going to help them. And he would not tell them what was in it. Now, on June 24th, 1948, so we're jumping back in time a little bit, Edith Morrell had suffered a stroke. I guess we're stepping back into time because we're going to be talking about some of the murders that we can for sure link him with. So June 24th, 1948, Edith Morrell, she suffers a stroke where she is actually left partially paralyzed. Now, she was admitted into a hospital near her son's home because she was visiting her son at this time. And so she was brought to the hospital. Now, her regular doctor was John Adams, but she was not with her regular doctor. So she's in the hospital. Well, he comes in to visit Edith on June 26th. So he finds out she's in the hospital, shows up, comes and visits her. She is then transferred to Eastbourne, where her doctor is, on July 5th. John then begins to give her morphine on July 9th. And he also added heroin to the mix on July 21st. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but please remember back then, morphine, heroin, all those things, they were considered actual medically, there were specific amounts that you could give patients at the time.
I mean, people get fentanyl these days.
I was just gonna say that, like, fentanyl is something that is used in in the hospital and stuff, but it's got to be very strictly monitored, and it's got very specific dosages. That's kind of the same thing with morphine, which we still do morphine, but you don't really get heroin in the doctor's office anymore. But it was a thing. So I'm not saying like he wasn't drug. I'm not saying like he was giving her like illegal drugs. No, he was doing his own mixture of things for her. Then on November 13th of 1950, Edith dies at the age of 81. And her death certificate states that she died by stroke. Remember, she had a stroke in 1948. Okay, so she died of a stroke that she had in 1948.
It's a long stroke.
Yeah. Now, it was discovered that John was originally part of her will, but he had been removed in September of 1950. So before she died, she removed him from her will. So she had changed her will to add him. And then in September, she pulled him off of the will. And it was also found out, though, that after all of this stuff had happened, he was given a Rolls Royce and a chest of silver cutlery by her son. I have no idea why. I don't know if he I don't know. Yeah. And he also took it upon himself to bill the family 1,674 pounds, and it was for 1,100 medical visits. So he basically, after she dies, he bills her family, you owe me 1,600 pounds because I visited your mom and I went to a medical visit with her 1,100 times while she was alive that she didn't pay for. Police later, as they're looking through this, they find out that no, there was actually only 321 documented times that he visited her. So now he's also overcharging this family, which almost makes me wonder if that's what the Rolls Royce and the silver cutlery is. Maybe the son was like, I don't have that money, but I'll give you this stuff and you can keep it. Now, another patient of his was Gertrude Hallett. Now, Gertrude passed away on July 23rd, 1956. Now, if you remember, this is the one. Now, Gertrude is the one whose friend went to the police because he was like, something's not right. Okay, that's who we're talking about. She was 50 years old when she died. So she's not that old. Now, her husband had died a few months prior to that. So her husband dies. She's living on her own. She's 50 years old. She ends up dying, and she was suffering from depression. She had been prescribed sodium phenobarbital and sodium barbitone. Now, according to John, he administered 2 tablets to her every morning of this medication. And then over time, he reduced the dosage from 2 tablets, which they were 7.5 grains. And he reduced it down to 2 tablets of 5 grains. So he was saying like, no, I give her these pills. She takes 2, 7.5 grains. And then over time, I've dropped them down to 2 tablets of 5. And it's for her depression. John received a check for 1,000 pounds from Gertrude on July 17th. And 2 days later, it appeared that Gertrude had overdosed and slipped into a coma. Now, she ends up being seen by another doctor due to John not being around. So she goes into a coma and John's not around. So another doctor is, checking her out. And they were looking at her and they're like, you know what? She kind of looks like she's suffering from a cerebral hemorrhage, not an overdose. So the following morning, after she's been seen by this doctor who says that she's suffered a cerebral hemorrhage, John contacts a coroner and says, hey, this Gertrude lady, I would like to organize a private postmortem for her. By the way, she's still actually alive when he does this. So she's not dead yet. But he's calling and telling the coroner,
he knows what's
when
coming.
She dies, I'd like you to take that body and hold it for me because I'm setting up a privatized shit over here. Now, after all this is going on, she actually develops bronchopneumonia and does end up dying on July 23rd. Now, a sample of her urine is taken, and it's confirmed that she had twice the fatal dose of barbiturate in her system. So she did have a drug overdose. However, we all believe that it wasn't by her own doing. Now, 5 days before her alleged overdose, she had actually altered her will. She had left John Adams, her doctor, she left him her Rolls Royce. I don't know why all these people have Rolls Royces, by the way.
They're rich.
Now, this vehicle at the time was worth 2,900 pounds. So back in the 50s, that's a lot of money, right?
But I wonder if it was like, because of the bill he sent the family, I wonder if he was hitting them up like,
Maybe.
hey, you owe me all this money, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, well, we don't have it. And he'll be like, just leave me something in your will if you die.
I mean, maybe,
And
but
we'll call it square.
it's just
Like,
kind of strange, right?
yeah.
You're not leaving a fucking $3,000 car
No, I'm
to your
not saying
doctor in
it's
the will.
whatever he did was right. I'm just trying to guess like how he got
I
them
mean, she
to
clearly
put-
had money, though, because she gave him $1,000
Well, I'm
like
just trying
a
to
couple
figure
of
out
weeks
how
before.
he's getting himself onto the will unless he's physically changing the will. Like,
Manipulation.
yeah. But I'm saying, like, what's he saying to manipulate them? That's what I'm saying is, like, maybe he's trying to be like, you owe me all this money.
Oh, no, I think he's just like all the other... He's not the only serial killer we've talked about. If you remember, we talked about the one that is in Olalla, Washington, the woman doctor, and how many of her patients signed over their everything to her. If you remember, she had a duke, the son of a duke that stayed at her property, and he had literally signed over his whole entire life to her, gave her power of attorney, and they found out he was poor. So I think it's just something, manipulation. You are a doctor. You're helping these people. You're helping ease their pain. You sit by their side. You're extremely well versed in being overly nice to them. And you bring up things that eventually gets them to put you in your will. Because remember, these are patients he's had for years. And by the way, just looking at pictures of Dr. John Adams, he actually was a very jolly looking man. So you absolutely would trust him. I guarantee anybody would have trusted him with like their life. So I could see that he was just a good schmoozer, we'll say. John's house, after these things have been brought up and the police are now searching, John's house is searched after this stuff is happening. Now, mainly what they're looking for is dangerous drugs like morphine, heroin, pethidine. And they're telling him while they're at his house, they're searching his house and they're telling him, hey, listen, we are looking literally for these very dangerous drugs that should not be not in a hospital setting. To which he responds, oh, I don't have any of those. I don't administer those kind of drugs to my patients. And so they're like, okay, are you sure? And he said, yes. And then they asked him, like, can we see your drug log? Because as a doctor, you're supposed to log the drugs. And he said, I have not kept a drug log since the 40s. And they said, oh, okay. Well, as they're searching, they see Dr. John. They see John Adams standing next to a cupboard that they have yet to search. And they see him literally reach into the cupboard and grab two things and take them and put them in his pocket. So they literally call him out and they're like, excuse me, sir, what did you just take out of that cabinet? We are searching your house. You're not supposed to be touching things. And he said, fine, here. And he brings out 2 bottles of morphine from his pocket. Now, his claim was that they were for patients, that they had been sitting in his cabinet. But they were prescribed specifically to these two patients, and he was just taking them because he knew they would think something, but they have prescriptions behind them. They said, okay, yeah, let's verify that. So they called the pharmacy, and the pharmacy is, yep, this one is prescribed for that patient. Correct. What's the other patient? They give him the name. Yeah, we have no morphine on file for that patient. So they are unable to verify the second morphine bottle. So John is arrested on November 24th, 1956. He was charged with 13 different offenses, including false representation on cremation certificates. He was granted bail and was out of prison while the investigation continued, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Now, he was arrested again December 19th, 1956. And then at that point, he was formally charged with the murder of Edith Morrell, which is the first murder we talked about. Now, it was believed that they had enough evidence to charge him with the murders of Edith, a woman named Clara Miller, Gertrude Hollett, and a woman named Julia Bradnam. So they brought forward all this information and they said, these are the people we are going to charge him with. And they said, no, you're not. You're only going to charge him with the murder of Edith. But thank you for trying. So on January 14th, 1957, a committal hearing is held and it is concluded on January 24th. There was only 5 minutes of deliberation that he could be put to trial, and he was committed for trial. So because they brought forward all the information for the 4 murders, and they basically said, no, but you do have enough for this one murder. So on March 15th, 1957, the trial begins, and if he is found guilty, he actually would face the death penalty, because at the time they had the death penalty in England. Now the trial went on for 17 days. And on April 9th, 1957, after 40 minutes of deliberation, John was found not guilty by a jury.
Ooh.
So he does go back to court, though, for the other charges. He has 8 counts of forging prescriptions, 4 counts of making false statements on cremation forms, and 3 offenses under the Dangerous Drugs Act of 1951. And he is found guilty of those. So he is charged a fine of £2,400. And he is required to pay the court costs, which was £457. His license to prescribe dangerous drugs was revoked, and he was struck off the medical register on November 27th. Now, John does return to practicing medicine in Eastbourne after his reinstatement as general practitioner in 1961. So he literally was out of practice for 5 years. And then he was reinstated.
Not long enough.
And the following July, he is actually given the authority to prescribe dangerous drugs again, too. So he really he just had it all. Then on June 30th, 1983, John fell and fractured his hip. And he develops a chest infection while he's in the hospital on July 4th. And he ends up dying from heart failure in 1983. So that's the story of John Bodkin Adams. Would you like the shots? Okay. So when John would inject his, quote, special injections, he would make sure first that the nurses would leave the room. They would know nurses. Nobody was allowed in the room but him and the patient. And after he started doing his special injections, he would isolate the patients from their families and not allow them to see or talk to each other.
I wonder why.
John also would travel to see his patients, and pretty much all the time when he would travel to see them, he'd be riding in the back of his Rolls Royce that was driven by a chauffeur. That's how much fucking money he made. Okay. Now in August of 1962, remember how I said he got his license back and all that?
Yep.
He actually applied for a visa to come to the United States to be a doctor. However, he was refused entry into the United States because of his convictions. We dodged a bullet on that one. Then on August 24th, 1956, the British Medical Association, this is fucked up. I'm just going to say right now, the British Medical Association sent a letter, because remember in 56, he is now being investigated at that point. So the British Medical Association sends a letter out to all of the physicians that fall under the BMA, reminding them that they are not to give any information to police because of patient confidentiality. Like literally came out and was like, and I understand we have HIPAA laws. Okay. Those did not exist back then. First of all. And second of all, you're talking about a fucking murder investigation and you have the BMA telling all the physicians, don't tell them anything.
Well, they don't want to look bad.
At the time of the trial, the 17 days, that it took, that was actually the longest trial at the time in Britain history.
Jesus.
I'm like, damn, 17, that's it?
Hey, they were with it. They were just like, bam, done.
Yeah. Now, after his trial, John resigned from the National Health Service, along with all the other things, during his lifetime. I told you that he became fairly wealthy. During his lifetime, he acquired a mass amount of wealth. He acquired 402,970 pounds, which is the equivalent to 1.8 million pounds today, which is the equivalent to $2.4 million US dollars. And again, that is for shit he got from patients. That's not doctoring.
Yeah.
That's from acquiring shit from patients. Now, John did tell an investigator when he was being asked about the murders. He said, easing the passing of a dying person isn't all that wicked. And he's specifically talking about Edith Morell because they're asking him about her death. He said she wanted to die. That can't be murder. It is impossible to accuse a doctor. So, to wrap this up, what do you think? Is John Bodkin Adams a serial killer? Or is he just a doctor who cared about his patients and ended up killing them with the amount of medication he gave them by accident or on purpose, almost like a assisted suicide?
See, and I don't.
But hold on. And again, I have very mixed feelings about even putting this podcast out because I have always said I would never do unfinished or unsolved or na. And this falls in the unfinished, in my opinion, because while he, in my honest opinion, he absolutely killed people for the money and he was a greedy motherfucker. And that's why these people died. He was never found guilty. So therefore he's technically not he's never been found guilty in the eyes of law to be a murderer. So I did struggle, but see, I don't know these things until I get to the end. And then I'm like, well, shit, that's the whole reason I'm doing it. But also at the same time, I already told y'all that I was going to start expanding my horizon. So here we are. This one is a great one. But so what do you think? Do you think that he is a serial killer? Do you think that he was somebody who was really just trying to help people? What do you think?
I would say he's a serial killer because of the financial gain. If he never got a dime or anything from it, I would say, okay, that falls under possibly assisted suicide.
But regardless, even if he was doing assisted suicide, that, in my opinion, if you're somebody, because I know in European countries, assisted suicide is legal in certain countries. And if you're a doctor who that's all you do, I would never label them as a serial killer because they're doing something that they're being asked to do with all kinds of legal ramifications.
Yeah, no, this is more.
So this is very, I understand
personal,
what you're saying. Right.
When it comes to that. But as far as him and being a serial killer, I feel like he is because of the financial gain he got.
I agree. I think that he is by definition, he is a serial killer because he killed multiple people with time in between, like cooling down periods.
310 or whatever, like people. That's not much of a cooling down time.
Well, but again, not all of them were deemed suspicious, right? So he didn't kill every single one of his patients. However, I agree with you. The thing that makes me go, oh no, he killed those people on purpose was the fact that he gained financially from those people. And he didn't just like a little bit. Like he got a lot of it from these people. And it was only, if you notice, his wealthiest patients that he was put in their wills. He was not put in the wills of people who did not have a lot of money.
No, they didn't have anything.
So I agree with you. I definitely think that he is absolutely a serial killer. So that is why I continued to do the podcast. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. Because in my heart of hearts, John Bodkin Adams is a serial killer. And he is and again, he has actually been referenced to as being the original Dr. Death because again, Harold Shipman did the same type of thing, literally the same type of thing. Although I feel like Harold Shipman killed more than that though. I'm pretty sure that he killed more than 136 people. But my point is, and Harold Shipman was found guilty. Let's not forget. This doctor did not, he was able to, I don't even know how he snaked his way out of it, whatever. He just covered his tracks better, I guess. But yes, so I little bit apologize for giving you somebody who, in my opinion, is an unfinished serial killer. Not unfinished as he's going to go kill more people because he's dead. But I mean unfinished as in there's not like that, yep, gotcha moment. There is no gotcha moment with him, which this is the first time we've done a serial killer that was not caught and tried and convicted.
Yeah.
It's literally, to me, like almost unsolved. But I know it's not unsolved because the evidence is there. The justice system, the jury, they failed. They failed and they got the answer wrong. And he got to go on and live his life, which is really unfortunate. But again, I told you last week I was turning over a new leaf and I said, oh, hey, we might be doing more serial killers that are unsolved, or we might be doing more of serial killers that we don't even know who they are because I'm going to run out of serial killers. That's why I told you this, because I had already researched John, and I was like, well, no time like the present. So here we are. So this is just one of the new types of serial killers we're doing. And again, like I said, we might be sprinkling in a little bit of true crime here and there, because I think I'm going to go through true crime withdrawals if all I get to talk about is serial killers, because I really just like the true crime genre.
Yeah. I mean, you should do a little looking into Dr. Kevorkian. And the only reason why I say that, I don't know if he was deemed a serial killer. It'd be interesting to find out if he was.
Kill more than one person?
Well, he had 130.
Okay,
I don't know if he was ever convicted. I can't remember, but his whole thing was terminal patients assisted suicide. That's what he did.
Oh.
He was a proponent of it. He would say death is not a crime. This is what he did. He did assisted suicide.
That's different than
the U.S., which is illegal.
It's illegal, I guess.
Right? So that's where I'm curious where he lands, because you had asked me the question if this guy is a serial killer or not, and I was like, yeah, he is because of the financial gain. But like I was starting to think about Dr. Kevorkian, I don't think he had a financial gain. He just assisted terminally ill patients.
It would be interesting because assisted suicide is not illegal in the United States.
Oh,
it's per state. It's per state. I was the only reason I know this is because my son went through a psychology class, and they had to learn about dying and grieving. And one of the things that I had found out was like Oregon is one of the states that you can actually do physician assisted suicides, because we had to sit down and read over all of the legal documentation that you would have to fill out. And there are very strict rules to it. You have to be terminally ill. You have to have less than like 2 months to live. You have to be able to prove that whatever your illness is would be detrimental for you and in the end, and you have to be over the age of like 18 or something. So they have rules. But so I'm actually curious, when he was doing the physician assisted suicides, if he was in a state that it was legal.
I believe he was in Michigan, which may have been legal. There's been a lot of debate. I just looked it up real quick. There's been a lot of debate. He was not legally or clinically classified as a serial killer. And the reason why is his actions fundamentally lacked the malicious intent, psychological motives, and lack of patient consent associated with
That's what I was just going to ask.
Murder.
No, that's what I was just going to say. That's what I was trying to say.
Because they sought him out and said, right. I want you to kill me.
And that's what I just said is like in Europe, when they do physician assisted suicides, if you're a physician who is administering stuff like that, you would not be considered a serial killer, because you're not doing it for your own gain.
Right.
You're doing it. And again, you're not even doing it without the consent of your patients. There's a whole legal process. So Dr. Kevorkian might be a controversial person, but I don't think he'd be classified as a serial killer, because if he was working within the ramifications of legal physician assisted suicides, then that's just what he is. And they might want to deem him Dr. Death, but Dr. Death is, in my opinion, Harold Shipman and John Adams are more Dr. Death than Dr. Kevorkian.
Well, he also had the name Jack the Dripper.
Because that's just fucked up.
It would drip into
that's
the IV.
That's just fucked up.
Yeah.
And also, I'm going to make
his name
this
was Jack Kevorkian.
I'm going to make this one point, because I'm not trying to, don't fucking come at me, because I don't give a shit, but don't come at me. I don't care. I don't have a personal preference on physician assisted suicide. If you are somebody who is diagnosed with a terminal illness, it is not my fucking place to tell you what to do. So I do not have a, I just don't. I don't have a side. I have zero, like I would never be able to look at somebody and say, you should not do that. That's not my place. So if you're a proponent of physician assisted suicide, good for you. If you're against it, also good for you. We have a right to our opinions. And my opinion when it comes to physician assisted suicide is it's not my fucking business. That's my opinion.
No, and to be honest with you, I've thought about it, and the only way I would feel, I'm not against it, I'm not for it, right? So I'm, because I don't care either way.
I think it's circumstantial.
I think if the person is found mentally capable of making the decision themselves, it is their decision.
And they do that. So in Oregon specifically, there's all kinds of things you have to do. It's not like a 1 minute, you're like, haha, I want to die. It's not like that. That's not how it works. So we went on a whole thing about physician assisted suicide, which has nothing to do with serial killers, but it kind of does because our serial killer
he was doing that.
Said that's what he was doing. But like Jay pointed out, if he was doing it, why the fuck was he getting so much goddamn money? How did he end up a millionaire? Being driven around, chauffeured in his fucking one of 2 Rolls Royces that was given to him by his rich ass patients. Anywho, thank you so much for listening to us as per usual. Thanks for hanging out with us and hearing us talk about serial killers because we like to do that. Please, if you like the things that you hear and you know somebody that you're like, oh, hell yeah, they would totally vibe with JNT, share us with them. We appreciate it. Also, if you feel like you want to really boost us up there, leave us a comment or give us a rating. And you know, that always helps us. That helps us. And one more time, we have our Patreon out. We're losers. We are such big losers, but we have such a, we're lifing right now.
We got a lot going on.
So we're lifing, but we do have our Patreon still. There is nothing special on there. So no worry. Like you don't need to even go be there if you don't want to, because you're going to get the same shit that you're listening to right now on the Patreon. But there will be things coming soon on the Patreon that most likely you won't be able to get except for going on to Patreon. So I'm just letting you know that. But if you want to check out the Patreon, it is just patreon.com/fatal blend. And that is also in our show notes. There's a link directly to our Patreon. And on that one, you can just, you know, honestly, supporting us would just be following us.
Yep.
That's it. We're not asking for nothing right now. Just follow us. Follow us on anything. It doesn't really matter what. Just give us some follows. We definitely get the downloads, and we're loving it. That's where it's gonna sit. That's it. So I don't have much else to say other than thank you so much for listening to us tell you the story about John Adams, the serial killer, not to be confused with John Adams, the president. Until next week, goodbye.
Are you down with ODD? Original Dr. Death. Bye-bye.
Remember to lock your doors and bar your windows. Until next time.